Hey everyone, Leo with the Dreaming Tree, and today we're putting together our Bunny's Bungalow. This is a piece that will fit in perfectly with those of you that have little fairy villages. Also double as a wonderful little gift for a child for this upcoming Easter. But with that said, let's take a look at what we have here in front of me. There's a bit of little pieces, mostly embellishments, and we're going to kind of go over that really quick. I want to show you what's what. We'll put these together real quick and just get them out of the way. I've put some of this stuff together already because it's redundant. There are 3 of these large flowers, okay, and each flower is going to require 2 sets of petals. Okay, so there's a total of 6 of these, and each one is going to require 2. 2 of them are going to have little leaves on them, and one is going to be solo, just like that. So here's the set of leaves that go with these 2. To construct the leaves, well, they're already constructed, they're already cut out. You want to take and just pinch the tip of the little leaf there to make it dimensional. You can see how that looks, nice and dimensional. And as far as the flower goes, I'm simply going to take and just curl and train the petals up a little bit, just so that they're not sitting all flat. Give them a little bit of dimension there. And then you can kind of curl them and twist them between your fingers like that to bring them up even more, just like that. We'll do the same thing with the other one. Okay. And that's that. Just going to kind of twirl them between 3 or 4 fingers just to bring it up a little bit, like that. And we're going to take and glue one to the other one right in the center. So just put a little drop of glue right in the center there. And I'm going to use my handy little pick-me-up tool. I've been using that a lot today. And just take and pop that right in the center. You want to offset the petals so that they're not right on top of each other. And as I was pulling that away, it kind of shifted a little bit. So I'm just going to fix that real quick and correct it. Of course, the glue is setting very quickly today. Okay, and then we have just pop this in the center. There are 3 of these little centers of our flowers here as well. Just put a little bit of glue in the center of your flower and just drop that right in. Nice and easy. Okay, and then again for 2 of these, we're going to glue these to this little set of leaves here. So throw a little bit of glue on this, almost a circle there. Not quite, but close. Oops, that wasn't dry yet. I'll grab it with that. And just get that nice and centered. Right there. There we go, perfect. Okay, now you'll notice that I also, off camera, did a little bit of embellishing, and I've got a little pearl in the center. So I'm just going to drop a tiny little bit of glue in the center of my flower, and with my pick-me-up tool, I'm going to grab, actually I need a larger rhinestone there. Actually, I'm sorry, that's a pearl. I might need a little more glue on that. Just drop a little bit of glue right in the center there, and just drop my little pearl there. Get it nice and centered, and there you have it. Okay, so 2 large flowers with leaves, 1 large flower without leaves. So those will be ready to go once we have the main structure all put together. Now I want to go over these as well. We've got these little flowers, and let me see here. You're going to have a total of 4 that look like this. So it's a set of 3 leaves all together and 1 little flower, and I have that here. So again, you're going to make 4 of these. And just like we did with the large flower, we're going to take and we're going to pinch the tips of each of the leaves here to make them dimensional. Very simple. Okay. And then with the little flower, just like I did with the large one, I'm just going to kind of take it and twirl it around in my fingers here, or between my fingers, I should say, to lift those petals up a little bit, just like that, okay? And then we can take and put a little bit of glue right here towards the bottom. There's kind of like maybe a third of a circle down there. We'll take our flower and pop that right into place, just like that. And if you want, it's a good time to throw a little pearl in there as well to finish it off. You can do a little rhinestone. If you have liquid pearls, that would work too. Whatever you want to do to pretty up your little flower is perfect. Okay, so we're going to have a total of 4 of those. Very simple to construct, but let's put those off to the side. We're going to be using those later on once we have our total structure put together. Now also, we have, similar to what we just did, same size flower, except it's just 1 leaf. Okay, so with this, I'm going to take and pinch the tip of the leaf, just like I did. It's very small. We'll throw a little dot of glue right on the circular base of the flower. We'll take our flower here, and again, I'm going to take and just kind of spin it around between my finger and my pointer, or my thumb and my pointer finger, just to raise those petals up a little bit, and we'll glue that down right to the very base of that leaf. And then of course, if you want, which I suggest, throw a little pearl or rhinestone in the center to finish it off. This pick-me-up tool really makes quick work of little things like that. Okay, so here you can see a little flower on a little leaf, and that we'll save for later on. And then there's also, we'll have 2 solo flowers that are going to get glued to this thing. Okay, that's going to go on the front of our house, and we need to take and glue these 2 together. We'll put these flowers on this later on once everything's in place, but we do need to glue this down. So it's essentially 2 layers just to strengthen it up, make it nice and stiff. So go ahead and get your glue on this piece here. We're going to glue it to the other one. It's exactly the same. Now you'll notice on this one that I did a little bit of inking and also ran it through my embossing machine. It's the Sizzix Tiny Dot embossing folder. There we go. Okay, so that is that. We'll let that kind of sit and set. Put that off to the side. And then we have these 2 little Easter eggs that are going to be right on the front doorstep. And there's your egg. You can see that I've inked that. And there are also little markers on the actual egg to help you with the placement of these pieces here. Okay, now I'm gluing this down to, what am I gluing it down to? Gluing it down to glitter paper. So I need to be a little extra patient with this. There are a series of markers there for this long strip. You want to put this piece underneath those markers. Okay, now with this little jagged little piece, it's like you want to put it down so that it looks like a W in that orientation. And there are some markers there, and you want to put those little markers right in the valleys of your little W. And that is how you know you have it in the right spot. So press that down. And then finally, there's a little tiny little piece here. It's just like a little cap. Almost looks like just a little circle. Pretty much is. So throw a little bit of glue on that. Get that lined up at the top. And just press that down into place. There we go. Okay, so we have our 2 little Easter eggs. You can put those off to the side. And there is a little flower. It's a different color than the rest of the flowers. In this case, I think it's a butterscotch color, I want to say. But we've got a little, tiny little rhinestone in the center of that. That's going to go on the door. That's our little door handle, actually. Next is the actual door. And there's this little purple, in my case, purple patterned piece that's going to go on the front of the door. And there are little markers here to help you with the positioning of this piece. So go ahead and throw a little bit of glue on this. If you're also using white glitter like I am for the trim and the doors, and you're applying anything to it, you'll want to go a little bit heavier on the glue just to make sure that it actually sticks. Okay, so there we go. So that piece is in place and ready to go. The little orange or butterscotch colored flower is going to go right there. And we'll probably hit that with a little rhinestone as well. Okay, so again, this is inked with a turquoise, as are the rest of these windows. Okay, put those off to the side. And the last little bit of prep that we need to do is with, let me see here, what am I missing? Nope, I think we're good. The top of the carrot has little leaves on it. There's a number of them. And you can see here that I've taken and inked this with a little bit of turquoise. And I left two alone here so that I can show you how I created the little vines, or I should say veins, in the center of the flower. Let me find my, I think I lost my little piece there. Oh, we can use that, that's fine. So I found a little Sharpie that isn't too dark. We don't want it to be overwhelming as far as the color. And I literally just took it and put it down, grabbed a scrap piece of paper and lined it up in the center of the little leaf here, and just with a very, very loose hand, well, not loose, but not pushing down really hard. You can see how, you know, how bold that is when I push down, but if I just kind of graze it, it doesn't look as bold, and it thins out. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to start here and just run it across very gently, just to create that little line. Okay, we've done this before. I think we did this with our poinsettias in the past. And this paper is a little bit different though. This is like a pearlescent green. Okay, so very easy, just like that. Just a nice quick stroke. You don't want to sit there and try to draw it because it's going to look unnatural. Just go real quick, get it done. And that's that. Okay, now again, as far as the inking goes, I don't typically show a lot of inking during these videos, although I have tons of videos on inking during our freebies and such. I'm trying to find an ink pad. Here we go. So with this, I wanted to, it's a fresh ink pad. I love those. I'm going to rub some of that off. With this, I went pretty heavy with the inking. So just kind of repeating a very quick, very free-flowing stroke and grazing the surface, not pushing down too hard. Now, I went over this the first time and I decided that actually I didn't push down hard enough. I didn't get enough of that contrast that I wanted. So when you're inking, you can start off by just going easy, not pushing down too hard. And then if you want to get a little bit more ink on there, just push down a little bit harder. And actually sometimes if you put your finger behind whatever it is that you're actually hitting at the time, it will prevent it from pushing back and you will apply more ink to that surface. Okay, so that looks good. Very cool. So we'll do the same thing here, and then before I put this together, I'm going to run these through an embossing machine. I'm going to do the same embossing pattern as I did on the little archway. It's almost like a trellis, I think it's called. I'll have to check that. Okay, and there we go. So I just have to emboss that and that will be ready to go. So that takes care of the little leaves there. Very simple. And at this point, we can go ahead and start working on the actual structure itself. Everything is pretty much prepped and ready to go. So let's start off with something a little more forgiving, and that's going to be the base for this thing. Okay, and make sure I got all the pieces here. I've already pre-folded everything, and you can see here, each of these sections has a little triangular tab here. We're going to take that tab and glue it to its neighbor all the way around to form our little base. Okay, so start off pretty much anywhere you want. Throw a little bit of glue onto the triangular tab here. Don't overdo it with the glue. And you can kind of pull that back if you need to. And bring it in, press it behind the neighboring wall here. I'm going to call these little walls. And get that lined up and press and hold for just a moment. And let that set. Okay. And next one. There we go. Then bring that over. So we just put glue on that little triangular tab. No big deal. Very simple. Okay. And the next one. So if you're following along here and you're noticing that you're not able to move as fast as I am, chances are you're overdoing it on the glue. Okay, so go easy on the glue. And I'm going to fold this back so that it's easier to get my finger in here and press that down. So go ahead and continue putting glue on the little triangular tabs there. And bring that wall in, line it up, and press and hold. So you can see what's happening here. Just creating a little base here. And make sure that I'm not missing anything. Doesn't look like it. Okay, and it leaves a couple more here. There's one here. Get your glue on there. Bring this wall in, make sure it is lined up accurately, and press and hold. There we go. Wonderful. And that just leaves one more. I'm going to make sure we tuck that tab in. And get your glue on that last tab. And line it up and press and hold. Okay, give that a few seconds to set. And we're going to take this little lid and close it up here in just a moment. That's going to require that we put glue on all of these little trapezoid shaped tabs. And then we're going to take this and close it up. Okay, don't worry too much if you can't get it all done in one fell swoop here. We'll show you how to clean it up in case something's not jiving for you. Okay, and then I'm going to take one thin line of glue out to the very edge. Spread that out. And then go ahead and close it up. Okay, so we're going to press down and get that lined up with the side opposite of the side that it was already anchored at. And just run your finger along the very edges here. Just make sure everything's making good contact. And take a look and make sure everything looks good, and it does. So that's that. Okay, so next we're going to put a little lip on here so that when we put our carrot on, it doesn't just fall off. Okay, so with these two pieces here, we're going to take and join these together to make it one long piece. Excuse me. And then we'll close it up to make it kind of a circle, I guess. So throw a little bit of glue on one of these triangular tabs. You can put this down flat. Grab the next one and line that up and press and hold that down. for a second. You can take it and fold it at that seam where we just glued the two pieces together. You can start pressing at that seam there, and you'll notice that this piece should sit perfectly flush on the other piece, and that tells you that you've got everything nice and lined up. Okay, so we're going to close this up now by taking the remaining triangular tab and gluing that to the other side to kind of close the loop. And you can technically do this flat. So I'm just putting that piece down flat, grabbing the other end and connecting it, just popping it right on there. And you can see how this sits completely flat. We'll go ahead and fold it over onto the seam, and that sits flat. It's like a little tank. Okay, so there we have that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to pop this through here. We're going to glue these tabs to the underside of this section. Now I have my texture side up because I want to see that beautiful texture once we get this glued. Okay, so you can do this. You can actually do it this way. It makes it easier. And just pop this right over it. Should be able to squeeze that right in there. Just like that. Okay, should be pretty tight, but I mean it should be snug. We want it that way. Okay, so then we can peel this back. So this is the top, this is the underside. We're going to peel one of these tabs back. You don't need to put a ton of glue on these tabs, just a very thin amount, and then fold that over onto the underside of this piece here. Get that in place. Then we'll move over to the side opposite of the side we just glued down. Do the same thing. Just a nice thin amount of glue, and then fold it over. There we go. And continue working our way around, getting the rest of these glued down. There we go. And go in here. Get rid of that. And fold that under. There we go. And a couple more. Fold that under. So this is our little prototype here. And you can see how nicely that's going to fit. We'll be working on that next here. All right, last piece. Fold it under, press it down, and there we go. Okay, so that is ready to go. Now let's take a look at this little base and determine, well, I guess it really doesn't matter which side you use. Both sides look great, actually, so I'm not going to worry about it. We're going to take and glue this down to the base, like so. Okay, now there's no glue on the inside here, so I think it would be safest if we applied the glue to this structure rather than putting it here, so that we know exactly where the glue needs to go. I'm just going to kind of do a little pigtail application at first, and then I'm going to put some glue along the very edges here, because that's the part that we want to look nice and seamless. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to spread that glue out to the very edges, and it's already kind of drying, which is not good. Need to work quick here. Okay, so just line that up nicely and just drop it in. Just work your fingers around the perimeter, making sure that that perimeter is making good contact and everything is sitting nice and flush. If it doesn't, you can always go in and clean it up a little bit. Okay. looks good. Okay, so our base is almost done. We do have some nice tall grasses that we're going to glue to this. And that's actually sitting very flat and flush. Doing some good work today, and I feel very good about it. Okay, so we have a little doorstep here. I've obviously taken this and not only have I inked it, but I embossed it. Okay, so that's going to go right about here. I'm going to figure out which side looks best. That side looks good. Okay, so I'm going to start off by gluing the larger section down first, and then I think I can just, well, you know what? I think we just do it in one fell swoop here. No big deal. Okay, so the large part obviously going here. And if it helps, just kind of line it up at the little fold here and then drop it right onto the base. Make sure it's nice and centered and just press and hold that down. Just like that. Whoops. Okay. Keep holding until you're sure it's not going anywhere. That looks nice. Okay. And then I'm going to put our little grasses in place here. So we've got two pieces like this with some score marks on them. And then there's one piece like this. So the way this is going to work is we're going to glue this right here, like so, all the way around to the back. And then there's a little tab there that we're going to glue into place as well. So I would start by putting glue on just one of these sections here. Just like that. And I'm going to kind of spread that out thin, speed things up a little bit as far as the gluing goes. Okay, so we're going to start with the section that does not have a little tab on it. Get that nice and lined up and use the little fold here as your guide to make sure that you have it lined up correctly, and also make sure that the bottom, the base of this is nice and flush with the base of, or the bottom of the actual base. Okay, that looks like it's sitting perfect. We can fold this out of the way and apply our next set of glue here, or apply our glue to the next section. Let's thin that out a little bit, and then just a little drop right there for that little tab at the end. So you can bring this down, again making sure that it stays nice and aligned with the bottom, the base of the base, and then just take this tab and fold it over onto this surface here where we just kind of pulled a little bit of glue over from this section here. Okay, so there's your beautiful grass. And once this is all in place, we can take a little dowel and kind of curl the grass out a little bit just to bring it to life so it's not so stiff. Okay, so that's that. And we'll repeat the same thing on the other side. So you can apply your glue to this section just like we did on the other side. I'm going to dab that over, spread it out nice and thin. Get that glue off my finger. Grab this piece, and we're working with the section opposite of the side that contains the tab first. Obviously, I don't think there's any other way you could apply this without it being upside down. Okay, so there's that. Make sure that's nice and flush with the bottom. You can pull this back, apply your glue to this little wall here. Spread that out, do a little bit of glue there at the end for the tab. Make sure you keep it nice and lined up, and then press that tab down. There we go. There we go. Okay, and we got two tabs there. We're just going to take and cap it off with this piece. And we added that little tab there to make everything look nice and seamless. In case you miss, or you don't get it on as accurately as you possibly could, that little bit of green will be back there, kind of hiding this, this orangey color. So everything looks nice and seamless. All right, so we're going to pop this guy right in place. A little extra glue. Make sure it's, again, nice and flush with the bottom. And press that into place and hold, okay? So Mr. Bunny's bungalow has some nice green grass surrounding the entire perimeter. And while I'm holding that and letting that set, I'll take and kind of curl some of these blades of grass. You can go in, you can go out, whichever direction you want. They don't have to be perfect. Just as long as they're moving around a little bit. Adds a little bit of interest and makes it look more natural. There we go. Okay, so that pretty much does it for the base. Okay, so we can put that away for now and we can begin working on the main bungalow. Actually, take that back. We do have those little Easter eggs that we need to glue to the front here. And you can either glue that flat, or if you want to add a little bit of dimension, you can pop dot it. I think I'm just going to glue that down flat, just because I don't really think it needs to stand out. This thing's already pretty dimensional as it is. So we'll just throw a little bit of glue right there. Now you want to make sure that the bottom of the egg is flush with the bottom of the base, otherwise it won't sit flat. So you may want to do this while this thing is actually on your table. And I'm going to grab a dowel, use a dowel to push that into place. That looks good. Okay, and we'll go here, grab our other egg. And you just want to make sure that you keep this symmetrical as far as the placement goes. Yeah, that looks good. So instead of little flower-filled urns like most people have on their doorsteps, Mr. Bunny has he's got some beautiful Easter eggs. Okay, so there you have that. All right, now we can put this off to the side and begin working on the main structure here. Okay, so the main structure for our little carrot bungalow here is made up of these two pieces. Well, it's 6 pieces, but they're kind of joined in these areas here. And what we need to do is we need to make this all one solid piece. We're going to begin by applying glue to these long tabs here and joining them there first. Now, most of the time, I like to put windows and trim and vellum onto these structures before we glue them, but because this is round at the top, that's actually not the best idea. So we'll save that for once this is actually all nice and assembled. But go ahead and get your glue on this piece here. It's kind of flimsy, so maybe grab it towards the center. Okay, and we're going to tuck that right behind its neighbor and just make sure that you get that nice and aligned all the way up and down. If you have a little bit of glue that squeezes out, it's okay, wipe it off. Most of this is going to be hidden anyway, because we do have some panels that get glued on top of this. Okay, I should have had a little bit more glue up there in that little crevice. That's okay. All right, so that's how that should look. And I'm going to throw a little bit of glue right in that little crevice there because I didn't have enough there. And I'm actually going to put glue on the very edge of this scrap piece of paper so that I can literally just pop it right in there. And actually, you know what? Oh, there we go. There we go. Just popped it right in. I'll press that and hold that for a few extra seconds. Okay, and then we're going to work our way up and get these tabs joined in place. Now, we do have some little markers. This is something new. Some little markers here to help you with the placement of these little tabs. Okay, so there's one tab here that's really tiny, and it's up to you if you want to put glue on it or not. The rest of these three tabs will kind of put it in place. Essentially, this little tab here is more or less to make it seem more complete, and so that light doesn't kind of penetrate through that little area. So whether you glue it down or not, I don't think it really matters. If you can manage it, by all means, throw a little bit of glue on there. But if you can't, just leave it alone and move up to the next larger tab. Okay, so we're going to take that. I'm going to put glue on that next tab there and just press and hold that. Just make sure that you're aligning it with the natural curve of these two pieces. Okay, that tab should be completely hidden behind this surface. Shouldn't be able to see it at all. See, like right now, if I take and put glue on this and glue it down like that, that is incorrect. You're going to need to kind of fold it and push it so that the two meet at this seam. Okay. Now what we're going to need to do is pull this tab down and apply glue from the inside so that we don't add stress to the part where we just glued together. Okay, so you can see glue on the next tab there, right here. And we're going to take and align that and press that down and hold it right at that tab. Now, because there's some resistance here, there's some pressure, just be patient and make sure that everything has a good hold before you release and move on to the next tab. This is where, with this sort of construction, it's not difficult, it just becomes tedious. Now, one thing you can do to save yourself time is just make sure you don't use too much glue. Okay, so moving on here, last tab on this section. So just take that last tab, tuck it right behind here, make sure it's lined up, and just press and hold. And you can see on the inside, 1, 2, 3, and then that fourth negligible little tab. It is in place. I actually got some glue on it. But again, if it's just kind of hanging out there, don't worry about it, because we still have this piece that we're going to put over this. So I don't really think you need to worry about it too much. Okay, so next up, well, I've got to decide if I want to join this together. Well, we can just do it now. All right, so same thing that we did just a moment ago. We've got this tab here. Need to get that glued in place first. Just throw a little bit of glue onto that tab. Spread that glue out to the very edge here. Okay. And just tuck that tab right behind the neighboring piece. Make sure everything is nice and accurately lined up. You've got a little window there you can put your finger between, or inside I should say, to help you with the gluing on that section. And just press and hold that in place. Make sure it's fully set. You can actually push this down on your table. Okay, that looks good. And then we'll move on to our little tabs here. So again, we've got that little negligible, tiny little tab there, but I can get some glue on it. So I'm going to, and then I'll take my finger and just kind of dab that glue, thin it out, and whatever excess I have left over, I'll just kind of wipe off on a sheet of paper. And we're going to tuck those tabs in behind. And again, making sure that we're getting it at the correct angle on that neighboring piece. And these windows, use these windows to your advantage so you can kind of get your fingers in there and just be patient while it sets. You don't want to rush this because then things will start pulling apart. And we're going to get discouraged, but there's no need for that. Okay, so that just leaves these two large tabs here. This top one is for later. We're gonna put a lid on this later on. Okay, and let's get our glue. I'm gonna do both of these remaining tabs at the same time. You can certainly pull this out towards you to make it easier to apply the glue. And that one is, if you need to, you can kind of take a scrap piece of paper and use that as kind of a brush to brush that glue on. And again, don't worry too much about getting a little bit of glue on this surface. That's all going to be covered up. And then tuck that behind the tab, tuck it behind the neighboring wall. Line it up as accurately as you can and press and hold. There we go. Just be patient. Make sure that's got a really good hold. And actually what I'm going to do is we're going to begin working on this one here while this glue really solidifies before we join everything. Because what we're going to need to do with these two sections eventually is we're going to start kind of pulling at this. And that is how it's going to create that nice round shape. But we don't want to do that prematurely. We probably could, but to be safe, better safe than sorry, we're going to let this really set until we're sure that it's good to go. So we're going to repeat the same thing here on this side. And just like we did the first time, I'm going to start with this long tab here. So begin by applying your glue to this long tab. And make sure this time if you goofed like me, get it all the way up to the very tip of that piece there. Spread that glue out to the very edge of the tab. Get any excess glue off of your fingers. And just tuck that right behind. Line it up nicely. And press that into place. And just keep holding that. This one you can push down from the inside, and if you really want to get into that little crevice there, you can use a dowel to apply a greater amount of force in a smaller space, which will help things set faster and be more accurate. It's a beautiful seam there. Okay, so we can pull this back. Again, remember that little negligible tab? Just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to not put glue on it this time. And I'm just going to put glue on, actually I'll just do all three of these tabs. Might as well. And kind of dab that glue, thin it out. It'll help things go a lot faster. And I'm going to skip that little tiny tab and just go to the one right above it. Get that nice and lined up and press that into place. And I'm just going to kind of keep on cruising here, going up to the next one and the last one. Now, since I thinned that glue out, made it nice and tacky, you can do that. It's not fully set, but it's tacky enough to where it's going to hold it. And when you get all three of them glued into place like that, they're all kind of working together to keep the shape. And eventually, everything will be nice and solid, just like that. No glue shooting all over the place. Everything looks nice and precise. I'm ready to move on to this tab now. Same thing. So go ahead and get your glue on this tab. Make sure you work it all the way up. Spreading that glue out. Okay. Tuck that behind this piece. Line it up nicely. And there we go. It's a little more work than, well, for those of you that pretty much purchase weekly or bi-weekly. Definitely these 3D projects are way more involved. But, I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day, as they say. And I think I kind of miss, well, the last bundle, as far as the assembly goes, went so quick that I didn't have as much craft time, and I think I'm feeling the effects of it. I don't know why, but, well, anyway, I'll tell you in a second here. Let's move on here. Again, I'm going to skip this little negligible tab and apply my glue to these 3 tabs. Okay, and just like I did last time, kind of dab this with my finger, thin it out, spread that glue all the way out to the edges here. And if you have some excess, just wipe it off so that you don't end up getting stuck to your own project. Okay, so there is our first one. Let's make sure we get that nice and aligned. I'm going to use my little window in my carrot house. Get that lined up. Move on to the second tab. Make sure that's accurately aligned, and then the last one. You see how quickly that went. So again, if you're spending a lot of time here and your pieces are not sticking, probably using too much glue. So just ease up on the glue a little bit. Okay, so these 2 sections are joined together. Now, just like we did with the first piece, I'm going to let this sit for a few moments and let this completely cure, because again, we're going to start stretching this out to join it with the other piece. And I don't want to destroy anything just yet. So in the meantime, what we can begin doing is putting together the little vegetation or leafy portion of the top of our carrot. Okay, and to do that, we're going to start off with this piece here, and I actually inked this, but I don't think I really needed to, because the little leaves here are going to get glued to the outside of this. So anyway, we have a little trapezoid shaped tab that we need to apply some glue to get this process started. I kind of dab that with my finger, thin it out, and it's going to get glued to the other end. Just line that up, press and hold. You can actually just lay this down flat. Okay, so that's the seam where everything is joined, and I'm just pressing down, holding that in place. And kind of like we did with the base, I'm going to take and close this up now by applying glue to these tabs here. And it's okay if you get a little extra glue on there. I'm going to just take my finger and dab and thin that glue out like so. And then we'll close this down. Now, as you're bringing this down, focus on getting this edge aligned with this side here. Get that lined up first, and everything else sort of magically will fall into place. If you need to, you might need to just kind of give these corners a little bit of a push or a nudge. Okay, and then use your table for that extra leverage and press down right along the edges. You can flip it over. If you have a little dowel handy, press down on the tabs. Okay. And this is going to be the little structure that we're going to use to glue all of these little leaves to. Okay, now I actually need to, like I said, I need to emboss this first. So you guys get a little bit of inking and some embossing in this video today. How about that? Usually leave that out just because it's kind of redundant, but it's okay. I'll show you today. And gotta find my embossing folder. My plates, here they are. Okay. So here is the embossing folder. I want the embossing portion of it I want it to be raised and not debossed, as they call it. So I'm just going to take and put these on here like so. Close up my folder, put it in between my little plates, platform, run it through the machine. Very simple. And there's our end result. Okay, and we'll get the rest of these going here, and I'll show you how to create the little top of our carrot in just a moment here. Okay, let me just get these embossed. Okay, so the way that we're going to put this together, well, there's 2 of these large ones. Well, there's actually 5 of these large pieces, but you'll notice that 2 of them are a little bit skinnier at the base and they have some score marks. Okay, those are going to put those off to the side for a second. And what we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to alternate these. Large, small, large, small, large, small, large, small, large, small, yep, or small, large, doesn't matter. Okay, and now because all of the interesting aspects of this leaf are here, I want to make sure that when we train this, we train it down this way so that we actually, once it droops over, because as many of you know, when you get carrots that actually have the leaves on there, these eventually start to kind of droop a little bit. So we want that to be visible. We don't want to look at the underside of it. So we're going to take our dowel. I'm going to take a large dowel here, 3/8 inch dowel, and just train this down just like that. Okay, and what we're going to do is we can either glue that to the outside of this piece or to the inside. I don't think it really matters. I'm trying to see if it matters. I don't think it does. Yeah, I'm going to glue it to the inside, to the inner edge here. So we'll just put that in there like so. Just throw a little bit of glue right in there and just glue that right in and press and hold that down. Give that a few seconds to set. Okay, so we're starting off with the large section here, large piece. And we'll worry about getting this trained and finessed once we actually have everything together. Right now, it's not a big priority. Okay, so we've got that piece in place, and we can put glue on the next section right next to it. And we're going to do a small one. I will train it a little bit since it's easier to hold right now. And we'll pop that one right in there. Just make sure it's nice and flush at the bottom of the base there. And just press and hold that in place. Give that a second to set. And again, we can work on finessing this later on because it is going to droop a little bit more than it is right now. Okay. All right, so you can go ahead and get your glue on the next section, and we're going to go with a large. So pop that right in. And press and hold. And I forgot to train that one. It's okay though. Just take this and hold it. Now, I'm going to wait till that's set before I try to train it. But you can see how realistic that looks. It's very cool. Okay. Let me take this and just give this a good old train real quick. Just kind of, what we're doing is we're loosening up the fibers in the paper to cause it to kind of droop like that. Okay. So next section, right next to it, throw a little bit of glue on there. And again, we're going large, small, large, small. So grab a small guy here. I'm going to train him before I pop him in there. Okay. Line that up and just press and hold them into place. It might be getting a little bit tight in there, but it's okay. The whole thing doesn't need to make perfect contact with it. Okay, and then we'll finish this up by gluing another large and then another small. Okay, so I've got 2 sections left here to get glued down. I'm going with the large this time, since we're alternating. And just pop it right in there. This last one may be a little more difficult to get in there, just because if it's easier for you, you can absolutely glue these pieces to the outside. I think maybe that's how we did it on the prototype, but either way, it doesn't matter. No one's really going to see the inside of this. And as long as this is nice and full and lush with greenery, I don't really think it matters. But since I committed to gluing these pieces to the inside, I'm going to follow through and finish it up, but you're welcome to glue them to the outside if you prefer. So I've got one left here, and it's our little shorty. And keep forgetting to train them, at least to get them started. Yeah, just pop them right in there. And just give that a press and hold. Just make sure it's flush with the bottom. And just continue holding that in place. And then these guys here, the ones that are a little bit skinnier and have the score marks, we're actually going to glue just the little tabs in place, and they're going to go in the center of this little container. Okay, so again, I'm not overly worried about how much these are all drooping just yet. We'll kind of take a look at how everything looks once everything is actually glued down and in place. Okay, so with this one, again, we want to just kind of droop it like this. Okay, so we're going to put glue on just the bottom of this tab. And first one is going to go right here. We want the edge of this tab up against the outer edge of this little cup or contraption here. Let me just want to make sure I'm getting in the right spot there. I'm going to use a dowel to push that into place. I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. Just like that. Okay, just kind of makes it look more full on the inside. So we'll do the same thing here with this piece. Throw a little bit of glue right on there. Don't forget to give it a little bit of a training before you pop it in there. And this one's going to go opposite side. Press that down. And there we go. Using my dowel to push that into place. And there we go, look at that. That looks great. Okay, and again, don't worry too much about the final aesthetic here. We can always kind of play with and finesse this later on once we actually get it on top of our carrot. But that looks very realistic, actually. I'm very pleased with that. All right, so we'll put that off to the side, and we can get back to the actual structure here. Okay, so we can grab these 2 pieces that have been sitting there, getting ready for prime time. And what we're going to do is we're going to join one to the other here. Okay, now these are nice and dry and ready to be kind of pushed around a little bit. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off by applying glue to this long tab, and that's going to help get everything nice and anchored for us, give us a nice foundation to build off of here. And I'm going to throw a little extra glue right along the very edge. I'll fold that down, and then I can take my finger and spread that glue out to the very, very edge here. Get that glue off my finger. Take this other piece, and let's get these 2 sections lined up take a look at the bottom there. Make sure that it's nice and flush with the other piece. There we go. And just kind of give that a nudge wherever you need to give it a nudge. There we go. And when that glue is nice and tacky, it almost makes it effortless because it just grabs hold and it's almost like it doesn't let go. I'm gonna stick my hand in there and push down on that. Get that nice and in place. Okay, so you can see that beautiful seam there. Okay. Now again, there's gonna be a little bit of, it's gonna be fighting a little bit, but not too much. And just to make things easier here, I'm going to, again, we're gonna skip that little piece, that negligible little piece, and I'm gonna put glue on all of these tabs here because I think we can do this all in one fell swoop. We're gonna take and kind of dab that glue, thin it out nicely. Okay. And tuck that back behind this piece. And get all of these tabs nice and lined up. Definitely take advantage of the little hole for the window to stick your hand through. And also up on top here, move these out of the way and get that glued into place. There we go. We'll just press and hold while these sections dry. Okay, so we have one half of it connected. Now we just need to close this up, and the process is going to be pretty much the same. Now, it is going to be a little tricky here because we're not going to have much room to work, but I'll show you a quick little trick to make easy work of it. But first, let's get this in place here. So we're going to start with this large tab. Just make sure you get enough glue on that. And I'm going to take this, fold it back, and spread that glue all the way out across the entire tab. And at this point, everything should be pretty dry, so don't worry too much about kind of stretching this thing out. Okay, so get that nice and lined up. Use those little windows. Okay, so just start at the bottom, make sure everything's nice and flush there at the bottom, right there. And work your way up. And you're probably noticing that, well, those tabs are kind of, they're all tucked away back there. So how are we going to get in there with our glue? Well, I'll show you here in a second. It's going to go back to the little method that we use. I'm going to push this down on my table just so I don't end up creasing this thing. Beautiful seam there. Okay, now, well, you can actually access the tabs from the inside to apply your glue. So I'm going to flip them down so it's easier to get my glue on in. Okay, so you can see the tabs right there. And we're going to do our best to get our glue on there. Now I'm going to peek through this little hole up here to make sure that I'm getting my glue in the right spot. Okay. Get as much glue as you can. Don't overdo it, but get some glue on those tabs. Okay, so you can see the glue on those tabs now. And you can actually just start up at the top if it makes it easier to get those nice and aligned. Move these out of the way. and just press and hold them in place. It should, for the most part, kind of snap into place at this point. Okay. And there we go. Just do your best to get those aligned as accurately as you can. It's, again, going to be a little finicky because it is kind of fighting itself based on the shape, but totally fine. And if there's one that's still kind of, that top one for me is not sticking completely, but I'm going to focus on the ones that are and make sure that those get a good hold. And then you can grab a scrap piece of paper, just throw a little bit of glue right on the corner of it and tuck it in there. And just paint a little bit of glue under there so that we can get that tab in place. And press and hold that and let it set. There we go. Okay. So that's that. And now we can find this little piece here, and we're going to close up the top, and that should fit snug as a bug. And I'm going to go over to the front. I'm going to start on this tab here. We'll get it anchored first, like so. Move those out of the way. Okay. And just get that anchored. Make sure it's nice and centered. There we go. Just like that. And we can peel this back, move it out of the way temporarily while we apply glue to the remaining tabs here. So I'm just gonna get a little bit of glue on there, and then I'm gonna end up spreading this out with my fingers, so I'm not really worried too much about being perfect with the glue. You can kind of fold it down and spread that glue around. Doesn't need to be perfect because we're actually going to cap this off with a couple more pieces later on. So now flare these up, bring this piece down, make sure it's making good contact with all of those tabs. And you can stick your hand in through the bottom. Actually, it would help to just maybe flip this over and press down from the inside. Pardon my head. And there we go. Okay, so again, don't worry too much about being perfect with this because these two pieces will eventually be covering this up. Okay. All right, so there's our structure. And now we're going to put our little panels in place. Okay. So we'll start off with the front. And the front obviously is going to be unique because it's got a window and a door where our little bunny is going to be. And that's going to go on like this. And then we're just going to fold this up. And you'll notice on top here, this little piece that we just added, how there's a little, it's like a cross. That point in the center is ultimately where we want this tip of this panel to end up. Okay? So it's going to sit pretty much like this. All right? So what we're going to do, we're going to begin by anchoring this at the bottom. You want to make sure that it's making good solid contact at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to put my glue right there. I'm going to spread it all the way out to the very bottom. And we're going to anchor this first. So when we place this down, we're going to kind of feel and use our fingers to make sure that it is absolutely flush with the very bottom and also centered on this section. Okay, so do your best to make sure that it is in fact nice and centered on this segment. Okay, perfect. Now, once we're sure that it's fully set, we can peel this back and we'll do a little bit of glue up the sides just a little bit. You don't need a ton. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we get some glue right up to the tip and spread that glue all the way out to the very point. Okay, and then we're going to take that and make sure that it's making good contact all the way up, right to that window and up to the top. It should get pretty darn close to that little plus or X up at the top. And don't worry if this is folding weirdly, because again, we're going to cap that off with another piece, but essentially that is what it should look like. Okay, so keep holding that down until everything is nice and set. You don't want to let go prematurely. And there we go. Okay, so that's that one. Now obviously, let me just go over these real quick here. We've got one window on the back, two windows on the side, and then there's two pieces that doesn't really matter where they go. Okay, and let me make sure that we're doing the right one here. Okay, so this guy here, you'll notice that the only difference here is these little cutouts. So the one that goes on the right, there's a little hump here. The hump is to the left. That one's going here. This little hump is on the right side. That's going to go here. Okay. I don't think it really matters. You could probably flip-flop them, but for the sake of making it as designed, we're going to go with this recommendation here. Okay, so again, putting glue just on the bottom part. We're going to get that nice and flush with the bottom, and using my two fingers here to feel it and make sure that it is in fact flush with the bottom, and then also make sure that it's nice and centered too. Just kind of get an idea of how this is going to look once everything is in place. And it should look mostly seamless. You might have a little bit of a gap between the two, but that's another reason why I added a little bit of ink, because that essentially makes it look almost seamless. We're working with paper and trying to make it 3D, so there's always going to be that little bit of imperfection. It's not like we have a 3D printer here that we're, molding everything with. So, but it's going to look pretty darn close to perfectly round. Okay, so just like we did before, we're going to take this, just make sure that it is sitting nice and flush. A little extra glue shoot out there, that's okay. Make sure it's nice and centered on that section. Keep it nice and taut. See down here I didn't have it making good contact, so I'm going to go back and make sure that I do, and then just peel that up and press that down into place and hold it up at the top. Okay, we can always go back in and add a little extra glue in any of the sections that maybe aren't sitting flat. Boy, you can hear that wind swirling out there. It is a telltale sign of spring coming. Okay, now I've got a little gap here, and I'll show you how we can fix that in just a moment here. Okay, I think the top is set. So if you find yourself with a little gap that you're not too fond of, take a little scrap piece of paper. There's no glue on the bottom of it, so you can literally rub it on the surface and not worry about blemishing anything. Just paint a little glue in that little area where you might have a little gap, and just press and hold that down until it takes. And then that way everything looks nice and seamless. And if it's sticking up just a little bit, no one's really going to notice anyway. Okay, so making good progress here. Now we can move on over to this guy here. I might have used the wrong one there. Maybe not, I don't know. Either way, like I said, I don't really think it matters because the windows are all in the same spot. So I'm not overly concerned about it. But anyway, back to this, same process. I'm going to take and apply some glue to just the bottom section here. Spread that glue out all the way to the very edge. And get that nice and lined up with the bottom. Make sure it's centered on this section, on this segment. Use your fingers to kind of feel and make sure that it is in fact nice and flush with the bottom. Looking good. Okay, and then we can peel this back, apply our glue, going up the side. A little bit at the top there so that we can spread that out nicely. There we go. And same thing. Just going to take that, place it on there nice and easy. Kind of work your finger up as you go to help this make nice contact all the way up. There we go. You can stick your hand inside too, so that as you're pressing down on this, you don't end up warping or creasing the paper, and then just hold it up at the top. Yeah. Did a lot better that time, so practice makes perfect, obviously, as they say. We're making a carrot out of paper, guys. How cool is that? There's gonna be a little bunny living in there. I know a cute little girl that will absolutely adore this. Okay, so 3 out of 6, almost done. Now we're gonna move over here, grab one of these. Again, I don't think it really matters which one you grab. These are all identical pieces. Just wanna make sure that you leave the window for the back, for that little opening there. Okay, same process. A little bit of glue just towards the base. Spread that glue out to the very edge. Get that lined up. And press that down. There we go. And hold. Yeah, I'd say this is, after this, it's pretty much fun and games because we just get to kind of embellish this thing, and it's almost like they built a house, or we built a house, and then we get to go in and decorate it. And that's the fun part. All right, so again, a little bit of glue up the sides to the top, a little extra glue at the top so we can spread that nice and thin. Bring that up. And just a little bit here and there. Okay. And again, make sure it's nice and centered. And a little glue came out there, that's okay. And just press along the sides as you work your way up. Make sure it's making good contact. There we go. And bring that down. There we go. There we go. And just hold that down. That part there. It's not sitting flat, but that's okay. I think I still got it while it was tacky. And if not, again, we can always kind of paint it to get it to sit nicely. Beautiful. This is a really cool paper too. I think this is a DCWV paper. We'll have that all in the supply list on the site as well as in your PDF. I think the site will actually give you specifics, but there we go. Looking good. All right, let's get our piece here with the little window on it installed. So just the very bottom, spread that glue out to the very edge and get that nice and centered. So it helps to kind of adjust things and manipulate or move this piece around so you get the best vantage point to make sure that you are in fact getting it nice and centered. And of course, before we get everything glued down and finalized, kind of give it a dry run and make sure that you're happy with how all the seams are looking and so on and so forth. Okay, it's looking really sharp. Couldn't be happier. It's looking good. All right, so let's pull this down now and get our glue along the perimeter. Okay, I'm gonna go here. Work a little bit there, maybe a little bit in the center of the window. Spread that glue out to the tip. Come on, there we go. Wipe your fingers off. And bring it on up. Nice and slow. Okay. There we go. Make sure it's making good contact all the way up to the tip. There we go. Good job there. I can put that down on my surface actually and press down. Get all of that in place, looking good. And it just leaves one more side. And you can see how nicely everything should match up here at the top. This one's a little bit off, but again, we're gonna cover that all up, and these seams look great. So again, taking some flat elements, two-dimensional things, making them 3D, there's always gonna be a little bit of imperfection, but as long as you do your best, the end result is going to be fantastic. I don't think there's a human on this planet that can reconstruct this the way that it was designed in software. There's the element of human error, but still gonna look great. Okay, so that bottom piece, that bottom section there, getting that all glued down. I'm gonna hold that down for just a few extra seconds to let it set. Okay, so let's bring this down, last one. And let's get our glue up the sides. And of course, focus here on the tip. Spread that glue out nice and thin. Clean off your finger. And let's finish this up. Make sure it's making good contact all the way up. That looks pretty good. There we go. Work it all the way up. Make sure it's nice and flush all the way up. And finish it off on top. There we go. I got one little area here that is kind of sticking out, but that's okay. You can always go back in, add a little extra glue if necessary. Okay. That's looking good. All right. Wonderful. All right, look at that. So, sweet. Okay, next up. I think we're gonna put the top on last. Right now, we can focus on putting our little window trim in place, as well as our doors and our vellum, because we do have some vellum. You can actually put a little tea light, electronic of course, inside to illuminate this. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is actually going to glue the vellum to the back of our little window trim pieces. So best way to do this is simply taking and putting little dots of glue around the perimeter of the cutouts. You don't need a ton of glue here. I just have little dots. Okay, now this one here, obviously, is for our door. Just make sure that you are in fact covering up the cutout. Okay, so it should look like that. We'll let that kind of chill for a second. And we've got this guy here. Just little dots of glue, very tiny, and you know, give it a little bit of space between each one. you don't need a whole heck of a lot of glue to hold vellum in place. So the dots will be plenty. Okay, just make sure you're getting that nice and centered. There's plenty of wiggle room to make sure that we get this in place nicely. And I believe, let me see here. Now, see, looking back at this now, I've got this little edge here that kind of pulled away from the base. So I'm going to go in and clean that up because I am OCD. Just paint a little bit of glue right on that section and just press that down and hold it. So just be patient while that sets. And in the meantime, so there's another window. I can multitask. I'm holding that down, and I will add, yeah, maybe I can't. That's dry. Almost. Little dots just around the perimeters of the windows. No sense in creating a huge mess. I'll just pop that down. Get that nice and centered. There we go. Looks good. I don't have any of that vellum sticking out. Okay, a couple more, and then we'll get our windows in place. And we again have some little embellishments. So I'll show you exactly where all of those go. I'll put our little foliage or the greenery up on top to cap everything off, finish it off. There we go. Let that really dry because on a few of these we're actually going to be kind of curving the windows, especially on this round one here. So I want to make sure that this vellum is really set before we do that, otherwise we risk it coming off, which we don't want to do. Okay, so this guy's just going to go right on here, like so. Press that down. Okay, so that's that. And what else do we have here? That's pretty much it. Okay, that looks great. So the door is pretty much straight. It's not curved at all. So we're going to put this in place, and that's going to go right there. So let's get our glue. Now you want to make sure that you're not putting any glue on the vellum portion because that's going to show through. So keep the glue out of the way of the actual cutout of the window so that we're not seeing any of the glue showing through the vellum. Okay, so you can see there's no glue visible from the outside. That should be flush with the bottom, and of course you want to make sure that it's sitting right on top of the cutout, matching up with Mr. Bunny here. And that looks pretty spot on. Press that down. You can actually put that down on your surface and press down from the inside to get that to really stick. And there we go. I'm going to wait to do that one last, but with these windows, this is all straight. There's no curve to this, so we can be confident in putting this on. And we do have some little scallops here, so it would help to maybe do a tiny little dot of glue in each little scallop so that it all stays in place. One in the center, maybe a couple through the little cross section of our, and don't put any glue on the actual vellum. We don't want to do that. And pop that right on there, match it up with the existing shadow layer. Press that into place, and then I'm going to put this down on my surface and push down from the inside to really get that on there. That way I don't risk, whoops. Okay, well, that worked out nicely. I don't know why that happened. Unless my, oh, you know what it is? My mat is probably sticky from all the stuff we've done on this mat. And it just got stuck. We'll try that again. It's also possible that I didn't have enough glue on there. Okay, That looks good. You could do it this way too. Just be careful not to bend or warp or crease the actual structure itself. Just be gentle with it. There we go. Now I think I can put that down on my surface. There we go. Okay, so that's one window. Moving on to the next. You get the idea here. So there's a good opportunity here, good time to pause me and work at your own pace. The next thing I'm going to do is put this little entryway arch in place, and then we'll start working on putting our flowers in, and then we'll put the little cherry on top as far as the little leaves are concerned on top of our carrot. Okay, so that's looking good. Again, I've got my hand in there to create a surface that I can push up against so that I don't destroy this thing. There we go. Beautiful. That one looks like it's already got a good hold. I'm getting better at this. And the last one. Okay. Again, just putting little dots throughout this. Do not put any glue on the actual vellum. We don't want any of that sticking out. Okay, line that up. Get it nice and centered. There we go. And press that into place. Wonder if you can hear that wind. It seems to happen every time it turns to spring or fall. The winds just get crazy. I think the jet streams and Mother Nature is just kind of fighting with itself. Spring's trying to push in and winter's just not having it. It's actually 60 degrees out today, which is very nice. Okay, so that's that. And that just leaves this window. Now you can see here how there's a little bit of a curve on this. So what I would suggest is, now you'll notice here that the top two panes here are a little bit bigger than the bottom two. So just make sure that you're getting the two smaller ones up at the top. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually kind of pre-bend this a little bit and curve it so that it's easier to glue this down. And it doesn't matter how you curve it, as long as it's just kind of bent a little bit. It's going to make the application that much easier. Same thing as we did with the other windows. I'm just going to do a little dot on each of the little scallops here, and then just a few little dots on the cross section here. And just like with the other one, make sure you do not put any glue in the little cutout areas where the vellum is. You don't want to see that glue. And there we go. So curving it really helped. It just kind of popped right into place. Okay, hold that patiently while it sets. Make sure every little section there is making good contact. Okay, there we go. All right, look at that. Okay, almost there. All right, so now we can put some of the flowers in place here. The little entryway, I'm going to use some foam squares, and we're going to actually add some dimension to that. And let's see, these are maybe a little too big. Let me see if I have something a little smaller. I do. I have some smaller squares here. I think I actually got these in a scrapbook, not a scrapbook, but like a paper crafts magazine at Barnes & Noble. You know, those packs where when you buy them, you end up getting like stamps and papers and all kinds of cool stuff. And I don't really use the stamps very often, but okay, so now the top here, there's gonna be a flower up here. So this little foam square is probably a little bit too big and you're gonna be able to see it from the front, but we're gonna be putting a flower up here anyway, so you're really not gonna see it. And that holds true for this bottom section as well. So if you wanna add a couple extra ones down here, just for stability, feel free. We're gonna cover all that up with the little flowers that we've already pre-constructed. Okay, so I'm gonna peel this off and we're gonna get this in place. It's gonna go right over the door. The bottom's gonna be flush with the bottom of the bunny bungalow. And of course, it's gonna be centered over the door. So I just wanna make sure that we get that placed correctly. Okay. And again, this is going to go right here. Make sure it's centered right on that panel. Just like that. Okay, that's nice. It's a good size as far as the foam squares go. Okay, so remember that little flower, that singular flower without the leaves? That's where that one's going to go. So let's take a little bit of glue. And I'm going to put some here as well, since it is raised. And that guy is going to go right there. And it's fun to already have little pearls in place as well. It's almost like I'm putting the finishing touches on it now, so that's exciting. Okay, now again, there were two little flowers that were just solo by themselves. And that's where these guys are going to go. So this guy's going right here. And the other one, of course, for the sake of symmetry, is going to go right here. Again, we're pretty much at the fun part now, guys. Actually, it's all been fun. This is just reaping the rewards now. Getting a taste of the fruits of our labor. Okay, don't forget, we have a little door handle, and that's that smaller, different colored flower. So just throw a little bit of glue on the back of that guy. And that's going to go right here. There we go. Okay, and then we've got these two larger flowers, and these are going to go right here. Now we want to make sure that we keep them above or at the bottom of the base here. Okay, and if you want, you can kind of fold these petals in a little bit to make it a little more dimensional. Now they may flatten out again as we go to glue this down, but it's okay. You can always kind of fluff them up at any time. All right, so I'm going to put some glue right here at the bottom. I'll go a little bit heavier on the glue. And that is going to go right about there. Now, let me throw some extra glue on there. Hot glue might be a better option for this. Okay. And let me see here, is that right? You know what, I'm going to put this one on this side. Don't worry about that glue blob. Yeah, so there's two leaves on this. One's a little bit wider than the other. I want the wider one out to the side so it takes up a little more space. Okay, so just like that. And we'll grab the other one. Get our glue on there. Fluffs these little petals up a little bit. And pop that in place. There we go. Yeah, it really just kind of takes it to a whole nother level. Make sure that that's going to sit nice and flat for us. It will. Once it dries, it's going to look great. Okay, so now, excuse me, we have these little guys here that we put together. One's going to go here, the other one's going to go there. So nice and easy. Get a little bit of glue on there, and he's going to go right there. And again, I'm gluing this down to glitter, and that's always a pain in the you-know-what. Glitter's not the most porous of materials. Okay, and this guy's going to go right here, pretty much right at the cross section of the window. And this is the little flower with a single leaf. Yeah, that's going to need a little more glue. It's almost like you got to glob it on when you're working with glitter. Or like I said, if you want to get the hot glue gun out, that would be a good idea. All right, and then we have, remember these 4 little guys that we put together. One of them is going to go on this window. So let's get some glue right in the center. Going a little bit heavier on the glue here because of my, and that's going to go there. Beautiful. Now got one of these 3-leaf flowers is going to go on this window, right at the top. Get that nice and centered. That looks nice. You can see how much these little details really add to the project. And this guy's going to go here. There we go. Yeah, it's really cute. And then of course we've got one on the back. So that's going to go in the same spot. And I'm going to throw some glue on there. Last little flower, same orientation. That's that. Okay, so that just leaves. What does that leave? Oh, that just leaves our top. Okay, so we've got this piece here, and that's just going to go right on top here. Okay, just going to glue that right to the top. So you know what? I'm going to just put glue on the middle here and just kind of spread it out a little bit out. Not too much. Would help to get a good kind of bird's eye view to the top, just to make sure that you've got it centered. So I'm going to stand up and check my work. That looks good. Okay. And then I'm going to take this second piece and get that glued to the piece that we just put on there. Get that nice and centered. Make sure it's nice and flush all the way around. And you just pop our little greenery in place and call it a project. There we go. So you see how this little cap that we're putting on top here pretty much covers up any little imperfections that we may have had up there. And there is our little greenery, and that is super cute. All right, so just put a good amount of glue on the bottom of this. Go a little bit heavier than usual. Get that glue all the way out to the perimeter. And you'll notice that there are some markers on here. You want to just kind of fit that right into where the markers are. And hold that down for a moment, let that set. And that is it. Give that a few extra seconds to set. Look how cute that is. Oh yeah, look at that. So what I may end up doing is, again, playing with the little greenery up here, maybe just to kind of cover up the stem a little bit more, have it you know, droop a little bit more in some areas, not all of them. And I think there's going to be, probably throw a little bit more bling in some areas, might as well. We put all this time and love into this project, might as well jazz it up a little bit more wherever possible. But that pretty much does it. So take a look at the final photo to see if you can spot any other little things that we may have added. But that's it. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, head on over to our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. While you're there, hit the little bell so that you get notifications anytime we release a new product, whether it be free or paid. And if you make this or anything from our new bundle, I would love to see it, and so would the rest of our community. So head over to your Facebook and do a search for Dreaming Tree Group, or you can type in this little URL that you'll see here at the bottom of your screen. It'll take you right there. But anyway, don't forget to eat your carrots. Just don't eat this one. And as always, I look forward to crafting with you again.